Hello. Welcome on back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Today we are recreating the bold glamour filter that has taken the internet by storm. So without further ado, if you want to learn how I created this look right here, then keep on watching. So to begin, I'm using the Glossier Futuredew Oil-Serum Hybrid to prep Chloe's skin with. This is the first time I'm using this, so as a first impression, I'm liking it. It's hydrating, it makes the skin really glowy, and you know what it does? It adds a nice grip to the skin. It does have a slight tackiness to it, which I know might, scare some people away, but I think that's what I like most about this. It gives the foundation and powders something to grip onto, and that's usually my goal with skin prep. And per usual, I like to bring the skincare down the neck and chest to add some luminosity to the skin here too. To add to this, I'm using the Glow Recipe Strawberry BHA Pore-Smooth Blur Drops and applying this just to the areas I want to reduce the shine and smooth out the skin. I had the privilege to partner with this brand on TikTok for this product launch, so I've been able to play around with the product for the last few weeks, and I can say it does a fantastic job at reducing the shine and making the makeup last longer throughout the day, but a little does go a long way with this. You really don't need a whole lot. Now for foundation, I'm using the Makeup by Mario's SurrealSkin foundation in the shade 140 and applying this on with their foundation brush. You'll notice I'm keeping the placement here more towards the center of the face before I blend it outwards. I'm kind of avoiding the under eye area because up close you can see Chloe has these gorgeous little freckles, and I don't want to cover those up. I definitely want her skin to look like skin by the time we're done with this. So I'm really pressing this foundation in with a brush, and you'll see me here in a moment take a sponge and further press this product into the skin. I'm not adding more foundation on with the sponge. I'm just using it to blend and to also help pick up any excess product we don't need. Next up, I'm taking the Patrick Ta Major Sculpt Cream and Bronzer Duo in the shade She's Sculpted and using this to add dimension back to the face by placing this below the cheekbones, along the jawline, and around the perimeter of her forehead. You see, the foundation we used, I think, is actually quite a good shade match for her. It matches the center of her face sorry, I can't talk, sorry. It matches the center of her face perfectly, but you can see once we brought it up to the forehead area, it starts to look too light, and that's something a lot of people can relate to. Our skin, it isn't one single shade, right? Especially on the forehead, we usually are a bit tanner because that's where the sun most naturally hits. So you can see by applying this warmer pigment to that area, it adds realism and some structure to the complexion. Once I have this blended in, I'm grabbing the One Size Blush Trio in the shade Attention Seeker and using the cream to add some color back to the cheeks. Looking at the filter, the blush does have more of a rosy berry undertone rather than a baby pink tone like the one I'm using here, but I don't know. I just wanted an excuse to use this. I love a cool toned baby pink blush, and even though you'll see me add powder blush to this later, I wanted to see how this looked on someone else other than myself, and I'm glad I did. It's very, very pretty. Okay, for concealer, I'm using the ABH Magic Touch Concealer in the shade 8 and using this to brighten up the under eye. I'm keeping this placement right there in the lower inner corner, and I'll also apply a bit of this to the chin, center of the forehead, and down the center of the nose to also highlight these areas before I head back to the sponge to blend it in. This kind of adds to what I was saying a minute ago about adding dimension to the face. Rather than adding shadows and contours around the perimeter of the face, we're now adding in the light to the center. And of course, the blending is kind of, self-explanatory here. It's my favorite part of the glam routine, so I'm going to take my time with this so you can enjoy some of this footage and enjoy the process. Alrighty, we're just about done here with the blend and we get to see how it's coming together. We have those subtle highlights and contours, but while also being able to see her naturally beautiful skin shine through. Now to set this into place, I'm using the Lower Mercier translucent setting powder and ever so lightly placing this along the under eye to set that concealer into place. I'm using a smaller, more dense brush here for this area because I really want to press that powder into the skin and mattify it. But for the rest of the face, you'll notice that I use a larger, fluffier brush, and that's because I want a softer application that will retain the skin's luminosity. You could also use like a powder foundation for this step if you'd like, but it really comes down to the coverage you're looking to achieve. In this case, I'm not so much looking to add more coverage, I'm just wanting to alter the finish. But if you're looking to add more coverage, a color pigment and a powder foundation will do that for you. Once I have the liquid products set into place, I'm heading back to our Patrick Ta duo and now using the powder bronzer in this to emphasize the cream contour. Something I noticed about this filter we're recreating is that the look is quite defined and bronzed, especially around the forehead and cheekbones. So a little extra bronzer will help achieve that sculpted effect we're going for. So of course, by now, you know I love a good baking moment. So I'm taking the same translucent setting powder we used earlier and placing that right along the sides of her nose and along the jawline, which will leave these areas a bit brighter and sculpted once we come back to wipe it off later. But until then, I'm gonna start on the brows using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz and use this to begin shaping the brow, little by little, building up the density. This look does call for a bolder brow, but I'm gonna try to do it in a way where where it's still wearable, right? And it doesn't look completely it doesn't look completely absurd. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, after this, I'm taking the ABH Brow Freeze and I'm going to begin applying this in the opposite direction the brow hairs grow in. So in other words, I'm running it against the brow growth direction. And then I'll take it back down to lay the hairs into place. This will give us the polished, clean brow effect I'm looking for. To finish up the brow, I'm using the ABH Brow Wiz to draw in tiny hair-like strokes. This step really levels up the brow game. If you haven't tried using a brow pen, I highly encourage you try it out. The one I'm using here is really great. If you're looking for a more affordable option, NYX has one that I really like as well, but yeah, it takes a little practice, I'm not gonna lie, but it's well worth it and it makes a big difference. Now here, I'm just taking a bit of my concealer to clean up the brow. I kind of I kind of messed up getting the brows even, so using a bit of concealer will help make my brow application look a bit more balanced. To start on the eye makeup, I'm using the cream contour that's in our Patrick Ta duo that we've been using, and I'm placing this right on the upper lid. This is going to act as the base for the eyeshadow we later use. Don't stress yourself out about getting this absolutely perfect. All you need to worry about is getting the pigment on and then letting the brush do the rest of the work for you. Blend, 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 smoke and smudge it out, and then you'll use the powder bronzer to lightly set this cream into place, which is what you see happening here. After this, I'm taking this shade here from the Maybelline 24 Karat Nudes palette and applying this right on, keeping most of the placement towards the lash line on the outer half of the eye, not being afraid to really diffuse that up and out to get that lifted, sultry look. And then you'll see me take a smaller detail brush to run this same shadow along the lower lash line. Once I have this shadow placed, I'm taking our bronzer and using this to further smoke out the lower lash line. Nothing too crazy or dramatic, just enough to give the eyes a little, like a little smokiness. Now, once I took a step back and looked at the filter again, it did seem like I needed to add like more depth to the eye makeup. So with the detail brush, I added a bit more eyeshadow right there to the upper and lower lash line, and voila. I feel like it's starting to come together, don't you think? It just needs a little bit of glow. So I'm taking this ColourPop highlighter in the shade Natch and popping this right on the center of the lid before diffusing it out with a brush. This is a highlighter, so it's not overly glittery. It's just enough to glam up the look, but keep it sophisticated. Next up, I'm taking this brown KVD pencil eyeliner and placing this in the waterline, although I'm not running this through the complete waterline, just the inner and outer corner because I don't actually really know. That's what the filter looks like, so I'm gonna do it too. And then here I'm using another KVD eyeliner, but this is in the shade Trooper Black. So the first pencil was brown and this one is black. I'm kind of wiggling this through the upper lashes and creating a soft wing towards the outer corner before smudging out the liner with my finger. It's quick, easy, and perfectly imperfect. For lashes, I'm using the IT Cosmetics Lash Blowout Volumizing Mascara and running a generous amount of this through the upper and lower lashes, really getting in there at the root of the lash for lots of density and dimension. Of course, you could stop here if you'd like, but I decided to add on a few cluster lashes on the outer corner of the eyes. The one I'm using are from a brand called Emboss Beauty. I'll link them down below along with everything else I'm using today, but it's an easy way to glam up the look while keeping it somewhat subtle. And when I say easy, by the way, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I make it look easy here because there's a lot of footage being cut out, but in reality, even for me, it can be a little tricky. Although I will say, once you get the hang of it, it's clear sailing. So moving right along here, I'm taking that lighter cream shadow in the Maybelline palette, and I'm using this to brighten and clean up the eye makeup before we head back to the complexion to wipe away the baking powder. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, we're using a powder blush, which is the Patrick Ta Duo in the shade She's Blushing, and I'm dusting this onto her cheeks, almost kind of draping it around the cheekbone. The filter has a very natural sun-kissed blush kind of vibe to it, so I feel like this kind of gives us just that, a sun-kissed, sculpted, fresh off the beach look. And I'm being generous with this, really going for it. For highlighter, I'm using the Haus Labs Gel Powder Highlighter in the shade Golden Pyrite and using this along the brow bone and the highest points of Chloe's face. I chose this golden undertone because it ties in the golden hues from the eye makeup. I mean, I guess I could have even used that ColourPop highlighter for this, but no, I take that back. I think that would have been too dark. I think this was a good move using this Haus Labs highlighter. It looks really pretty. There's no denying that. So next, I'm starting on the lips using this one size lip pencil in the shade Rent Dew and using this to lightly trace the borders of her lips with. I'm using this just to give a tad bit of definition to her lip shape. I'm not looking for a real contrasted, overlined 90s style of lip. So we don't have to be real precise here with this since we're blending this in a moment. I think that's what I love most about this look is it doesn't take a whole lot of precision or harsh lines. Everything from the eyes to the complexion to the lips are all very soft and diffused. So now with this e.l.f. O Face Satin Lipstick, I'm feathering the liner in and giving a sheer wash of color to the lips. This is very much so a your lips but better kind of lip color. Very natural, understated, and works with any eyeshadow color you pair with it. The only thing here is I do want a little shine, so I'm heading over to my MAC Clear Lip Glass and applying the smallest amount on top. The more you use of this, the more glam it's gonna look, so I'm being very careful not to overdo it here. Just a tiny bit will go a long way to achieve a hydrated, juicy lip finish. After this, I'm taking the iconic London highlighter drops, putting a few drops into the back of my hand, swirling a large fluffy brush into it, and then applying it onto the chest and shoulders. This is one of those steps that is so simple, it's almost silly. Like, you really don't even need this exact product I'm using to do this. Use whatever highlighter you already have that you use on your face, and just take a second to dust it onto your chest. It really pulls the whole look together, and it photographs beautifully too, so All in all, don't forget this step. And then of course, to finish off the look, I'm using the Dalba First Spray Serum to melt the powders in and lock the makeup into place, which makes this the final step in how we created the bold glamour filter on our naturally beautiful model.
We're gonna have that 1 or 2 or 3 bottles of wine. The night is up, but the moon is bright. We're gonna dance till we feel right. We're gonna have that girl time.
And there we have it, kids. I hope y'all enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, be sure to give this video a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out more of my work on my Instagram at Painted by Spencer. And until next time, I'll see you soon.